I have worked as a nanny and babysitter for 3 years now, and I've been with my current family for over a year. The little girl I watch had to be convinced to go to the library for the first time, but after reading through 10 books and picking up another 5 to bring home, she reads to me at least once a day. She's 4, mind you, and uses her powers for evil whenever she can. I missed breakfast and stopped at a coffee shop for a snack before taking her to piano lesson, and she promised that she wouldn't ask for anything, that she would listen to her mother's request, who asked her to only eat snacks from home that day. Except she's just so darn cute that the man behind the counter gave her a donut for free anyway. She was just grinning in the back seat, icing smeared all across her cheeks as I grumpily admitted defeat and just headed on to her class. I know all of her favorite outfits and songs, most currently is Jolene, and which flavor of ice cream she'll ask for each time we go. She is the sweetest 4-year-old who always tells me that I should stay longer and play with her every day. Recently, we went to the library to return her old books and pick up new ones. At first, we agreed on 5 per week, but now she begs to add just one more, and I can't say no, especially given how fast she'll go through them if given a chance. It's June, of course, and the display at the front of the library shows LGBT books. Some of them I remember reading. The Miseducation of Cameron Post and Carry On, and of course there are kids' books now, with rainbow covers and smiling, lecturing faces. She's 4, so she's short and easily distracted as I lead her to the kids section. We pass by 3 posters of rainbows and the word pronoun floating like a ghost behind the cartoon parade. This she notices, and once again I misdirect, lying about what it says. I would love to give a cursory answer, to say it is about people who are the same as them, boys who love boys and girls who love girls, and I could matter-of-factly say this and then continue on to find a new Fancy Nancy book over in the shelves. But I can't. Her mother is a kind woman, but one who knows just the right amount of not enough to believe that there are dangers hidden in a school system that educates your children just a bit too much. I can agree with her on the dangers of certain ideologies, but I cannot know if she believes gay people to be represented by the weird ones who make the news all the time. As June begins to pick up, the heat grows thick enough to make the summer rain feel cool and not unwanted against my skin, and so too does the yearly discourse renew. The argument that sticks with me the most, that kink belongs at Pride, and that it is perfectly fine for children to see it. The conflation between LGBT people and the strange has become so strong that we have slid backwards to a place where parents are afraid to tell their children about us. And with arguments like these, that question the need to protect children from sexual content and potential grooming, I find it hard to necessarily disagree with the avoidance of public education programs on the topic. The girl I watch is smart and energetic and loves frocks, not dresses, frocks she calls them, and I care about her. I bring her presents. She calls me when I'm sick. Even when I leave for a study abroad program this summer, I'll write her letters and probably still visit her when I'm home, even without pay. I care about her. I care about children, and the continual discourse, the continual conversation about why sex and porn and kink should be kept away from children, the fact that we are still having this conversation worries me. Because apparently, it is trans, ace, homophobic to care about the well-being of children. After spending far too much time on TikTok and Tumblr, which, as I'm sure you're aware, are breeding grounds for debate, I've distilled the arguments down to a few key points. But first, let's go over what BDSM and kink are, as I refer to them in this video. BDSM and kink are not interchangeable terms. Webster defines kinky as marked by unconventional sexual preferences or behavior. That's a huge umbrella including basically any erotic desire or activity not considered normative in your cultural context. BDSM is an extremely narrow subsect of kink. However, BDSM is the form of kink that has gained the most public appearance and discussion. It is what is insinuated in advertisements, plastered on movie screens, and discussed openly on social media sites. BDSM stands for bondage, domination, sadism, and masochism. Activities in BDSM are often characterized by the participants taking on roles that involve inequality of power. BDSM is representative of what most people think of when they hear kink, and is what I protest the seeing in public, and especially at Pride where it is shown to be representative of the LGBT community. By branding anything strange or non-normative as gay, by letting queer define the community, it allows people who are not gay, not bisexual, not same-sex attracted to divert and dilute what it means to be gay. It causes continual stigmatization as those who just want acceptance are conflated with people who follow the postmodernist tenets of defying normal social standards for the sake of defiance. Not all social rules are inherently bad just because they are widely accepted. So, number 1. Kink is not inherently sexual. Yes, it is. In human sexuality, kinkiness is the use of non-conventional sexual practices, concepts, or fantasies. The term derives from the idea of a bend in one's sexual behavior to contrast such behavior with straight or vanilla sexual mores and proclivities. Participating in kink causes sexual arousal and therefore should not be taken out of the bedroom. I am more than aware of facts that Pride celebrates same-sex attraction and sexuality, as well as the historical connection with gay men and kink, but this does not overshadow that, number 1, we did not consent to join your scene, number 2, kink can be very harmful, especially with the dynamics involved, and especially so to women, and 3, kink can still be at Pride, but should be kept at 18-plus events and not allowed in the general public events. The BDSM and kink communities supposedly pride themselves on the importance of consent. One must be asked to join, must agree, and must be given opportunities to change their minds while in the midst of it. You cannot ask everyone at Pride to agree to participate in your scene, or to be comfortable with playing into getting your rocks off. The sheer fact that kids are in attendance should be enough to not bring kink into the main activities, because kink is inherently sexual, allowing children to be involved and interact with you veers dangerously into pedophilic waters. Not to mention, the BDSM community, and by association, all kink, are linked to abuse. You are 50% more likely to be raped if you're in the BDSM scene. Kinksters fetishize rape and blame sexual assault victims. BDSM normalizes abuse. BDSM practices literally kill women. If you are engaged with the BDSM communities, I'm sure that's not enough to convince you. You might argue that it's perfectly safe and consensual. However, the use of power dynamics inherent to these practices allows self-identified dominants to justify their desire to have non-consensual sex. They do this by arguing that domination and control are necessary elements of eroticism. They are not. You can still have hot, kinky sex that doesn't base itself in a story or the actual act of one party overpowering the other. Since we live in a pervasively coercive society, almost everyone finds coercive cultural tropes sexy, but there are ways to have sexy fun times that don't have elements of coercion at all. That coercive elements are built so deeply into the basis of BDSM and kink allows some parties to take advantage of this, resulting in rape by deception and other forms of abuse. Others may argue that kink is perfectly fine if kept in the bedroom. That argument is more or less null, given that the argument is that kink should be allowed at Pride. It is not in the bedroom, it is on the streets in full view. Even if it were, the in the bedroom versus outside the bedroom binary is itself a false dichotomy. The BDSM scene is particularly invested in perpetuating this dichotomy for reasons I'll address more. But it is not possible to draw a bright line between your psycho-emotional relationship towards behavior / around power relations in erotic context and your psycho-emotional relationship towards behavior and power relations in non-erotic context. That's not how human brains work. But even if they did, even if the erotic and the non-erotic were clearly delineated and our orientations towards power in each context were utterly distinct, we live in a hypersexualized society where erotic permeates our daily lived experience. The phrase, I only like X in the bedroom, is a euphemism for I'm only aroused by X when X exists in an erotic context. But it is a willfully ignorant form of extreme literalism to extrapolate from that idiom the suggestion that a person who only likes X in the bedroom is literally only aroused by X and their actions are only ever influenced by that arousal in a single specific room of their home, where only other and fully informed adult consenting partners are ever present with the door closed. The following on implication, then, that any critique of the way a person's arousal patterns might intersect with their decision-makings as a political actor is an attempt to violate the literal sanctity and privacy of that person's actual physical bedroom is a straw man. But what I really want to point out is that the BDSM scene is particularly invested in maintaining this idea that all engagement with the erotic must occur exclusively within the bedroom and that there is no meaningful relationship between what happens in the bedroom and what happens outside the bedroom. Why? Certainly, we understand that there is some meaningful distinction between the erotic and the non-erotic. People don't go around saying, I'm attracted to blondes and I think a laugh is sexy, but only in the bedroom. Or, ooh, I love the taste of fresh whipped cream on warm skin, but only in the bedroom. It's generally understood that certain preferences and desires are more salient within an erotic context, without the need to qualify that. It's also generally understood that an erotic context is not tantamount to in the privacy of my own home. To wit, people who say they don't mind gays but wish they keep it in the bedroom are roundly considered to be reactionaries who critically fail at understanding human intimacy. But BDSMers cling hard to the notion of the bedroom as a sacrosanct zone of apolitical eroticism where they can preemptively caveat any questionable activities. I like smacking my partner across the face until her nose bleeds, but only in the bedroom. I think men are pathetic scum who belong on their knees, but only in the bedroom. Being beaten and sexually used and told what to do by my partner makes our relationship feel more intimate to me, but only in the bedroom. BDSMers need the bedroom because they believe they're doing something wrong, but they don't want to have to change their behavior. They just want to make sure they're not punished or judged for it. They're like my elderly grandmother who always leans over to whisper in your ear when she wants to make a racist comment in public. She's whispering because she knows it's not okay to make racist comments, but knowing that doesn't mean she likes to stop making racist comments. It just means she likes to make them in a way where nobody who might judge her will overhear. BDSMers know that there's something problematic with their orientations towards power. Otherwise, they wouldn't need to reassure us constantly that their love of abuse and violence and authoritarianism exists only in the bedroom. But they don't want to critically analyze or change or even have a conversation about those orientations. They just want to flag the bare minimum level of polite self-awareness to avoid being punished or judged. Kink is sexual but should be normalized. Others admit that kink is sexual, but instead argue that it should be normalized in a fashion similar to gay relationships. They argue that blocking every single source of kink from minors causes minors to participate in unsafe kink, which is perfectly fine because kink can be therapeutic. Never mind that kink is inherently sexual, and therefore minors should not be interacting with kink and not with adults, and certainly not in an environment like Pride, which is meant for all ages. Never mind that many people, women in particular, who participate in kink end up traumatized. Never mind the dangers that can arise from BDSM and kink as previously discussed. Many argue that asking people to refrain from participating in kink at Pride is the same thing as asking people not to hold hands or engage in publicly acceptable traditions like wearing a wedding ring. They argue that wearing a wedding ring or being pregnant is similarly forcing other people to be part of your scene and your sex lives, as a wedding ring and a pregnancy are much more symbols of fucking or having fucked than kink gear. However, there is a difference between signifiers of a relationship, like a wedding ring or being pregnant, both of which are far more than the concept of sex and bondage or fetish gear. You are not actively having sex or getting off to the state of being pregnant or having your pregnancy perceived by others. People do tend to get off to being in fetish gear or to viewing it. These are pretty common kinks of voyeurism and exhibitionism. Being kinky is not the same thing as being gay. They do not fall under the same umbrella, and there is no need to conflate the two, especially in a place that is meant to be a public and family-friendly location. You do not need to normalize it, especially with how rife the community is with abuse and dangerous practices. Already, aspects of BDSM are becoming normalized in public. One of the most popular and most dangerous is strangulation. You'll find jokes and commentary on it everywhere, and yet there is no safe way to strangle or choke someone. The effects of non-fatal strangulation is thought to be the second most common cause of stroke in women under 40. Women are 8 times more likely to be killed by a man who has previously throttled them. 33% of British men will choke, slap, and bite you during sex without previous permission. Research company Savanta Conras asked 2,000 UK women aged between 18 and 39 if they had experienced slapping, choking, gagging, or spitting during consensual sex, and if it was ever unwanted. The sample was weighted to be representative of all UK women by age and region. More than a third had experienced these acts and said they were unwanted at least some of the time, while just under 2/3 of women had experienced it and said it was never unwanted, or they had no experience, didn't know, or preferred not to say. Kink is male gay culture. Others argue that kink is an intrinsic part of gay male culture. I am not a gay man, and to be honest, it's not my concern that they feel that it is. My concern is that no one else consented to be part of your sexual gratification. However, I've heard plenty of comparisons of LGBT people's criticisms of kink at Pride to be homophobic criticisms by conservatives. Questioning gay men who partake in sexual behavior in front of children in the general unconsenting public is not the same as calling gay men freaks and pedophiles for being gay. You aren't a sex-negative puritanical aggressor for wanting to keep sexual content to 18-plus events only. And finally, thinking about the children is the same as being a conservative, and kids should not be at Pride. The worst argument I have heard is that children should not be at Pride and that caring about children is the same as the think about the childrenism, often used by conservatives to ensure a lack of resources or education about LGBT people. I can agree that some people use the excuse of caring about children as a shield for their bigotry, but to argue that anyone who cares about children is inherently bigoted is simply false. Child-on-child sex abuse is growing more common. People are increasingly porn sick. An obsession with sex is ruining interpersonal connections and self-image. And all of that is without going into the actual dangers of certain ideologies which push suicidal behavior and chemical castration under the guise of progress. Thinking about the children is the point of progress. We want to make the world a better place for those who come after us. I want to ensure that other kids who grew up gay aren't traumatized by the experience and that their friends and family love them and treat them as normal. I want to ensure that we live in a world where women are no longer oppressed by men, where the systemic imbalances and abuses we face today have been eradicated. I am not homophobic or intolerant for considering how children might be affected by being subject to sexual content which is often inherently abusive in its dynamics and behaviors. Children are allowed to be at Pride because being gay is not inherently sexual or unsafe for minors. Gay families that fought for the right to have kids, to get married, will want to bring their families to an event which celebrates our history. It should not be controversial to desire a safe environment to do so. Some may argue that this is all a moot point, that the pictures of puppy play, leather-clad men parading down the street is nothing more than scaremongering, given how uncommon it is. But that's not true. While most pride parades will not have leather-clad nude men walking down the street, there will be individuals who choose to dress and act in a certain way, and there will be those who do so outside of pride. That is the danger of the word queer. When we conflate weirdness with homosexuality, it becomes impossible to critique behavior that falls into the deviant without being called homophobic. There's nothing homophobic about wanting to keep sexual content out of the public pride parades, especially where children may see. And yet, here we are, having the same discussion we have every year, except now those on the side of preventing sexual content are seen as bigots, more so than the straight queer people who have become the spokespeople of our community. This, dear viewers, is where we part. I am so tired of this discourse. It's been going on online since I was 15, and we're still having the same argument, except nowadays, instead of having a relatively equal divide of, maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't, nowadays it's basically all kink is gay history, and if you don't like that, then you're homophobic. And it's just very depressing to see people literally conflate gay people who just happen to fall in love with the same sex, as being the same as people who want to have weird sex. We're not the same. We're not the same. Please leave any comments, concerns, questions, ideas in the comments down below. I need some ideas to pump out before I head out of town. I'm going to do a study abroad program starting in July, and I wanted to pump out some videos before then so that you don't have to get weird posting at 3 a.m. your time because I'm across the world. So let's get that going. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.